record on the cloud. Again, we're going to continue today working on lesson 9, which it's the last part of lesson 9 that involves working with tables. So let me go ahead now and share my screen. And I want to share it with, there we go, Dreamweaver. So I'm presuming everybody can see. I'm going to move this around a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, so we have here the next page that we're working on that was generated as a child page from the template that we created in lesson 8. And it's titled Green Events and Classes. And you can see under here, event schedule, that this is built inside a table. Tables are nothing more than a grid, a framework into which you can place content. It's similar to working maybe with an Excel document. In fact, we can import an Excel document, and that's one of the last things that we'll do here, because there's a number of different ways of adding tables to your website. You can build them from scratch. That's what we're going to start with. You can open an HTML file that has a table in it. That will be the second part. And the third one will be to import, I think it's called a CSV file, which is essentially an Excel file. And then we'll style each of them. As you can see right now, if we look at the event schedule here, it's really, I think, elegantly designed. Because if we were to turn this off, if I were to go back up here, let me move this little panel around that you can't see up here. And if I switch from live view to design view, and you look at the table, this is what a default table looks like without even having the styling at the top of the green header of this. It's just a really clunky grid. And you can adjust the padding and you can adjust the margins and that sort of thing. But the way that we have it styled in the lessons, if we go back to live view, where it's just a simple thin line that divides each of the lines, or the rows, I should say. And we can see that in this particular table, we have 4 columns. So tables are basically structured in, as I said, a basic grid, and they're structured in rows and columns, and you can add and remove. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4. This one has 5 columns. So we're going to style them to get them to look like this. But we first need to start by building them from scratch. So I'm going to switch to a new page right here that I created. This is my working document that I created from the template. And I just copied and pasted the green events and green classes from the finish, but you can type this in by hand. They don't provide the content for this. But what I'm going to do after this paragraph is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add, with this selected, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add or insert a table. So you can do that one of 2 ways. We can go to the Insert tab to the right, make sure that HTML is selected, and then you'll see right here we have table. You can do it that way, or we can go up here in the upper left-hand corner, and we can select Insert. And again, I go down here to HTML. I want to select Table. And as soon as I do that, it's going to prompt me. Do I want to put this before this text, after, or do I want it to nest it within it? I want to place this afterwards. Then the next thing that it wants us to do is it's going to ask us how many rows and how many columns do we want? And in this particular lesson, we want 2 rows, just for the time being, 2 rows, and we're going to add to it. And we want 4 columns. There we go. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're not going to add any cell padding or any cell spacing. All of that's going to be left by default. And we're going to leave the border pixel thickness is 1 for right now. And by default, when tables are constructed this way, they look kind of clunky. The other thing is that table widths can be displayed two different ways. They can be displayed in pixels or as percentages. So they want us to use percentage right now, and we're going to use 100% so that it fits the entire width of the content, the article that we've created in here. So I'll go ahead and I'll click OK. And you can see that as I scroll down here, I have a table. Again, it's 2 rows and it is 4 columns. So what I'm going to do next is we're going to insert content, but instead by hand. And instead of inserting it in live view, I'm going to switch to design view. And then I can click inside here and I can begin to add the content. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with date. You know, this is like so, and by default, it's all flush left. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to type event for the next column. And notice as I add content that the width of each of these columns changes. Just to let you know that tables are sort of like a pair of spandex pants. That's what I could sort of equate them to. If you, let's see, let me go ahead here. I'm going to hit the tab key to go to the next one. Yeah, there we go. That as soon as you add content, they expand. And they will expand to fit the content. And if you take content out of the cells, that's what these individual little boxes are called, cells, then they shrink. So as I'm adding content, you'll see that it expands. So I have date, event, and then the next thing that I want to add is, let's go back in here, location. And cost, C-O-S-T. So now they've all expanded and they fit. Below that, we'll go ahead and I'll type a date, May 1st. And then after that, it's easy, or for whatever reason, when we're working with tables, oftentimes we have to switch back and forth from design view to live view. And the next one was going to be May Day Parade. That's going to be the event. So I'm just typing this in by hand. And if I hit the tab key, it jumps to the next cell to the right. Then the location is going to be City Hall. And I jump to the right again. And I want the price to be free. Boom, hit tab. So the next thing that they want us to do in here is we're going to go ahead and we're going to add rows. And I don't think we're going to add any columns, but we're going to add rows. So I can either do this from, it probably right now would be easier if I just select design view, but to select the entire column or the entire table, I'm going to go back, I'm going to go down here to the bottom, and I'm going to select under the tag selector the entire table. And as I do, you'll notice down in the properties menu, if you don't have the properties menu visible on your computer, go up to window and make sure that properties is displayed. And I have it attached to the bottom of my screen. But you'll notice with the table selected, it gives me, I haven't assigned an ID to it, but it tells me I have 3 rows and I have 4 columns, and it's displayed at 100%. And you can change that from here. But what we will do in the remainder of the lessons is that we will use CSS to style it. But for right now, if we wanted to add rows to this, I can do that from here. If I want to go ahead and instead of 3 rows, I can change it to 5 rows and hit the tab key, and you'll notice that it adds rows to the bottom. So typically if you add columns, it will add them to the right, and that's the old way of doing it. And if you add rows, it will add them from the bottom. Likewise, if you remove rows, so if I were to come back here, it's not going to remove them from the top. Let's say if I decided I wanted 4 rows, notice that it takes it from the bottom, not from the top. So I'll go back to 5 again. Okay. You can also under, let's see, if I select this and I go to control and I select table, I can go ahead and I can insert rows and columns from here too. So did everybody get that? If I just click inside the table and hold down the control key and I look to table, I can select the table, or I can split a cell, or I can insert rows, or I can insert columns and rows, and I can delete them as well. So you can either do that with a keystroke, or you can do that from the properties panel. Yep. So the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to copy and paste tables. So what I need to do is I need to go from, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the tag selector to select the entire table. And I'm going to go over to our classic content, or not our classic content. I'm thinking of another program here. I'm going to go back to our files. And under resources, we have, where is it? It's the cell calendar, is that it? Yeah, calendar HTML, that's what I want to open. So I'm going to go ahead and open it, just double click. And that is an HTML page, an HTML file. So you'll see it's broken down into 4 columns and multiple rows. Well, again, I'm going to use the tag selector at the bottom here. And I'm going to select the entire table. Okay, and I'm going to copy it, Command C. And I'm going to go back and make sure that I am in design view. So I go from design rather than from design to live view or vice versa. And now I can go ahead and I can paste. And notice that it replaced the the table that I did from scratch. It replaced it and it with that HTML table. So that's what we're going to work on next. And we're going to start to use CSS to style this. If we can get this styled today and then begin to work on the next table, we will be in really, really good shape. Okay, so I'm going to switch from design view. I'm going to go back to live view. And you can see we have, right now, this is already styled somewhat. It doesn't look like the finished version. If we look at the finished version here, you can see that we have some green lines here that separate each of the rows, and we have the head of it styled, and we also up here, we have a caption that will be added. Fonts will be changed a little bit, and all of the individual columns will be styled as well. So we'll work on that. So let me go back to my working file. That's what I saved this as. Oh, I forgot, there's a couple of other things that they want us to add. For example, the title, the document title down here. Again, it's in the properties panel. That's the easiest way to add it. It says Meridian Green Start Association. And if you click here, it says add title here. And I'm just going to say events and classes. Forgot that. Anyway, that's something that you should remember to do for every page, is to add a document title. And that's something that you can do even though everything else, most of the rest of the page is locked because we're building it from a template. So now what I want to do is we're going to go ahead and start styling this. Do that. I've got to expand this a little bit so that I can see our CSS designer and I can see everything here. I have to move some other stuff around on my screen so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to make sure that I have green style selected. I want it to be global. And I'm going to come down here and we're going to start by adding a brand new, oh, wait, before I forget, one of the things that I need to do that I haven't done yet is that I need to make sure that the table is wrapped in a section, just as we did on the previous pages that we worked on for lists and, unordered lists, and we worked for adding content and that sort of thing on our first page. We need to select the table. So I'm going to go down just click anywhere in here. And I'm going to make sure that the table is selected. So let's select what I have here. So let's select the table. Okay. And then over in the DOM here, this might be the best place to do this, is I can go ahead and add a plus here. And I want it to wrap a tag around it. So this is another way of doing it. In the past, in some of our lessons, I put a section tag in by hand, but we can also do this from here using the DOM. So if I have the table selected and I select the little plus button here, I can select wrap tag, and I don't want simply a div, I want a section to be added around that. And again, that's going to add enable us to style this a little bit better. You'll notice it's already looking just a little bit different here. Okie doke. So now what I can do over here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new selector here. And I'm going to go ahead and add plus. And what I want it to be is section space table. So these are the general rules that will be applied to an entire table. Anytime we add a table to our website, that this is what it will have. So it's section space table. Okay. And now what I want to do is we're going to control the type here. So I'm going to go to the type. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to change. I'm going to select the font family. And I want to edit or manage our fonts. Let's see if we have one already. We want Arial narrow. So I'm going to go ahead and manage, and we're going to create a new font list here. Let's move this down a little bit. And I want to create a custom font stack just to be on the safe side. So what I'm going to do at the bottom here is I'm going to add, to find it, rather than scroll through this, I'm going to add Arial narrow. Okay, so Arial narrow is selected, and I will add that as the first choice for our font stack. I'm going to then also just add Arial as a second choice. And we'll add that to our font stack. Verdana will be our third choice. Verdana used to be one of my favorite fonts. It was designed specifically with the internet in mind. And so anytime I was designing my web pages, I used Verdana. It's a nice font. And then the last one is just a generic sans serif. And we got that, we'll add that. So here's our brand new font stack. Done. So now I can go back to font family. Come on. And I should have a brand new one here. Here's the one that I just created. Arial narrow, Arial, Verdana, and sans serif. And everybody understands that Arial narrow is my first choice. And if the end computer, the computer that's doing the final rendering of the web page doesn't have Arial narrow, then it will select Arial and then Verdana. If it doesn't have Verdana, it will use just a generic or default sans serif. So we'll select that. Okay. And I don't see any changes at the moment, so maybe I don't have Arial narrow. We'll see. Okie doke. So a couple of other things that we need to change for this section table is we're going to change the width, and instead of 100%, we're going to go ahead and change it to 95. So under the width, under the layout properties, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use percentages. And let's come in here and select 95%. So it's not the full width. So that works pretty well. We want all the text so far to, well, margins on the bottom, I want to be 2 M's. So let's go down to the margins. And I'm going to switch from pixels to M's. So I'll just select 2 EMs. Oops. There we go. And when I select the section table, there we go. Make sure that it is being selected. Remember I said if I had done this wrong, this wouldn't have been, wouldn't highlight in blue. So I've got that. I've got the font family. Font size, we want 90%. So let's go back over here. Font size, we're going to use percentage. We're going to go to 90%. Why 90%? Because they've kind of worked out all the details for us. And I think so far what they've done with this works really, really nicely. And then the last thing, the border bottom, we're only going to apply a border to the bottom. Remember, using the box modeling feature for CSS, we can assign a border to the top, the right, bottom, left separately. And that's what we're going to do. So I'll select the border here. And I want to select the border bottom. And the width of it is going to be 3 pixels. So we're going to work in pixels. I want it to be 3. And the style is going to be solid. There we go. And the color, I believe we've already used it. I don't know for sure. 060. So let's see. I know we have, but I don't know that I have it on my computer here. So here's the 6, the hexadecimal. So we're going to use the Octothorpe 060, the tab key. And I'm going to go ahead and add that. There we go. And we should see automatically here. Is it being added? Now see, I did something wrong. Let's go ahead and section table, and that is selected. What am I missing here? I am in live view. And maybe that's, oh, there it is. It's at the very bottom. So it did do it. We haven't selected, specified the rows yet. This is at the very bottom of the table, and it was applied. So that does work okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to assign values or styles to the individual columns in here. Okie doke. So now we need to go ahead and we have the style for the table itself. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to add to our green styles another selector. And this one is going to be section table TD, section table TD, and TD stands for table data. That's what is contained in each of the cells that you see. And then we also want one for table header, and that will be TH. And that's the top one here where it says date, event, location, and cost. So this will be assigned to each of that. So we're going to use section again. Actually, I didn't need table. Sorry, let me get rid of that. I just need section. And I needed table data. And there we go. And section header, table header. So section table TH for table header. There we go. So now when I select that, everything is selected. That's good. And now we proceed to add padding to that, and we add text alignment and borders to the top of each of these. So that's what I'm going to do. We're going to go ahead over to the right here, and I'm going to go up to padding. So to the top, I'll add 4 pixels. 4. There we go. And that opens it up a little bit. Notice how there's a little bit more spacing between the lines. It makes it much more readable. Very nice. And that's a good one. So we want text align. So let's go to text here. And I want my alignment, text alignment, to be along the left so that it's assured that it's to the left. We want the border to the top of each of these, okay, to be top here. We want the width to be 1 pixel. 1 pixel. And I want the style to be solid. And I want the color to be 090. So let's go back down here. I don't know if I've added this color yet. And I did already. So that's this one here. We'll go ahead and add it. And notice that it added that row to the top, or that guide to the top of each of these. Very nice now. I mean, already with a minimal amount of styling, it's looking really very nice. So what we want to do next, and I may have forgotten to do this, but this is the table header. Notice that this says table data for each of these, and I want them to be table header. I don't believe I've changed it yet, and I may have forgotten to do that. But anyway, let's go ahead and add a new selector for section table header and see what happens. And since I haven't assigned each of these, and each of these are still considered along the top to be table data, it won't apply it to it yet. So I'll go ahead and I'll create a new selector here. And I want this one to be table, section table header. So section TH. So specific to it. There we go. And the color I want to be FFC. So let's go ahead for the background color. Actually, no. Color is for the type. My mistake. We'll go in here. And I want it to be, I believe that's the yellow. FFC. There we go. And I'll go ahead and I'll add that. And so there we go. And then we want to change text alignment to center. So we'll change that to center. Notice it's going to change all of it. If I'm not careful, or maybe none of it yet. No, none of it, because I remember I said I haven't assigned it yet. So we want the text alignment to be centered. Now we want the border along the bottom. So let's select the border again. And along the bottom, we want the width. Let's see, make sure I have this. To be 6 pixels. So it'll be in pixels. 6, there we go. And I want, let's see, solid is the style. So we got style, solid. And the color, I want to be that deep green, 090. Let's go back in here. I believe it's this one. There we go. Okay, now none of these have changed. And that's because I never assigned to any of these cells. Instead of table data, they need to be table header, TH. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select each one and hit Command T. And instead of TD, I'm going to select TH. Okay. And you'll notice that it has changed. Background color, I think I forgot that. Oh, shoot, I did forget to do that. Let's go back. That's for that. That's the background. Wait a minute. This one I goofed. So for the border, I wanted the color to be 060. My mistake. I think that's the darker green. 060. There we go. That's the darker one. Okay, so we'll click that. And that will be assigned there, the darker green. And then the background color is the 0. That's the one that I wanted. So we're going to go ahead and that will be this green here. There we go. So there, notice that date is changed, but it's still, let's go back in here. With this section, with this selected, table header. And I guess I didn't change the type to centered yet. That needs to be centered. Come on. There we go. Now that has changed there. So as soon as I change each of these, oh, come on, come on, come on. There we go. There we go. So that one is working. Now I need to do the same for each of these. Instead of table data, I want each of these to be table header. So with each of the cells selected, I hit Command T to edit the tag. And instead of TD, I'm going to put TH for table header. Okay. And we've got those two changed. We select in here, hit Command T, tag editor, table header. So if this wasn't working, I would have to stop and go back and see where I made my mistake. But I probably should have changed each of these to table header a while ago, but I forgot to do that. There we go. So we've got a good part of our styling already done here. Okay, so if you guys are following along, I'm on page 280 right now. So the next thing that we want to do is to finish up this, the styling of this, is that we're going to select each of the columns and add styling for those. So to do that, if I select the table here and I click, come on. I select that, come on. And if I move over the little arrow here, it's not working for me. You know what, I'm gonna switch to, instead of working in live view, I'm gonna switch to design view so that it will be a little bit easier for me. Because I want to make sure that when I change the properties for each of these columns, that it doesn't change just one cell, but it changes all of the cells in the column. So to do that, actually, before we do that, I'm going to go ahead. So wait a minute, let me select the table. There we go. So we have the whole table selected, and then click in here. Nope, 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 nope. I'll be okay. I'm going to switch to design view here. Okay, so I've got design view selected. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add selectors before I even apply them. So I'm going to go ahead and under a section, make sure that I have green style selected, global. I'm going to go ahead and add some selectors now. And the first one is going to be section.date. So for each of the columns, that's what we're doing. We're going to create a selector for the date, event, location, and cost. So this is going to be section.date. Okay, and then we're going to create section, a brand new one. Let's go ahead and make sure that that's done. Create another new one. Whoops. Create another one here. There we go. And this one's going to be section space dot event. Double hit the return. So that's been added. We'll go ahead and add another selector. And this is going to be section space dot location. So we're creating the dot is a class to this, and it will be applied only to the columns that once they have been determined that that's what each of these are, is they've been assigned a specific class, then it will work. So I'm going to go ahead and add one more. So we're going to go back in here, and this is going to be section space dot cost. Okay, so I've got those created. Now what I want to do is I want to assign each of these columns one of those classes. So to do that, if I click and I drag in here, and if I'm in design view, I can go ahead and I can just drag all so that all of these cells in this particular row are selected. There we go. I've got them all selected. Now you'll notice that down at the bottom, and I have my properties panel visible, and it's not, there is no class assigned to that. But if I click here and I scroll down, I should find my classes that have just been added. Let's see if I can find them. I may have passed them up already. I don't know. Let's go back up. There are lots of them. No, I don't see them yet. So let's go down here. Keep going here. Might be at the very bottom. Form, fade. Oh, come on. I don't see them. What happened? Where are you? Come out wherever you are. Table row. Here's my profile. Maybe it's. I'm struggling here. So this is where I'm. Let me go back to the top, see what's happening here. And because I want to assign that entire column as a section table date. So it should just say section date. And if not that, just even just date. One. Here they are, right here. Teeny tiny little type. So there's the date. So they've been assigned a date. So I can deselect those. Now let's go ahead and select event. We'll highlight all of those in that particular column. Took me a few minutes to find those, huh? Let's go ahead and assign a class to that. And I got to scroll down again. I guess that was in the middle. I hope I find it again. Not easy to find. All the more reason to make sure that when you're done with this, that you save it and you keep it. Styling these is not fun. Where are you? Here we go. So this one, that's date, cost. I want this one to be event. Didn't I create one for event? I did. So where's the event? Cost. Probably down here. There it is. It's an E for event. Okay. And a couple more to go. So now we do location. Come down here to class. Well, then this is done alphabetically. Never realized that before. But you can tell there are lots of different styles to choose from. Many of these are bootstrap. Location, there's location under L. A little bit quicker now. Now that I kind of get the hang of it. In the past when I did this, maybe it's changed with a newer version of Dreamweaver, but these were all bunched together in the past. So I have costs, so this should be near the top under C. Caption, clear, cost, not where we are. Cost, yeah, boom. So now we've assigned a class to each of these columns. We have a class for each of the columns, but now we need to style each of them. So we'll start with date. Let's see. So to date over here, we're going to apply the property. And I'm going to apply the width it'll be just to this column. I want it to be 6 M's. So again, that's it's a relative unit of measurement. So I'll just type that. Let's see where we have M's. I want it to be 6. 6. There we go. So that shrinks it a little bit. To the cost one, we need it a little bit wider. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to select to the cost. It's also going to be, this is going to be 4 M's. So I'm going to select cost. And the width of this is going to be in M's. I want it to be 4 M's. It doesn't need to be quite so wide. There we go, a little bit narrower. We want the text alignment to be centered. As you can see, every time that I'm doing that now, it is updating and it's working pretty well now. So we want centered, and you can see that the cost now is centered. That works pretty nicely. So everything so far so good. Something isn't, there's still some things that aren't changing here. I guess that, no, they are okay. Everything, I guess, is fine up to this point. I don't know that we need to add anything else. I hope I'm not missing anything. Let me stop sharing for a minute. Let me save all of this. File, save all. Okay, and then we'll continue. So we're gonna I think I have everything. I want to make, I'm checking my textbook to make sure that I'm forgetting, if I'm forgetting something. If this is working the way it's supposed to, let me switch from design view back to live view. Yeah, it's looking pretty nicely. It looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. It looks really, really nice. So I believe we have pretty much everything styled. It works pretty well. Unless I'm forgetting something. It looks good, so I don't think it's wrong. But in the next section, we can either do that today or we can wait for Tuesday. We're wrapping up in the hour. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment here. And I want to see if there are any questions from you and what I've covered so far. The next part of this assignment, actually there's two more parts. The next one is to import a CSV file, which is basically an Excel file, and then style it. And that will take some time. And then the very last part of this is going to make sure that all of these tables work well on a smartphone so that they are responsive. So if I switch to the finished one here, we can see how this works. That on a fairly large screen or a medium screen, you can see that everything works pretty nicely here. And then when we scrunch it down to a teeny tiny little phone size, notice how it looks. That it goes from all of those 4 columns and it breaks it down now into these even odd groups, where the even odd groups are the columns. Okay, so let me stop sharing. Let's go back. So far, any questions from any of you? Yes, no? Go ahead and type it in if you have any question. Did all of you leave to go have breakfast or go get a coffee or something? No, okay. It is tedious, and I apologize. It's not, I don't know any other way of doing this. It's not glamorous. It's when it works, it's fun. You can, well. Oh, you don't email me the lessons. You're going to post, well, yes, you are going to email them to me. I apologize. You are going to email the lessons to me. And which ones do you publish? Wait until we are done with lesson 11. And then you're going to publish 9, 10, and 11. Depending on how this semester goes, we should finish lesson 12. And I may have you work until and wait until we finish lesson 12. And that's, you would publish that and replace what you did with lesson 7 with lesson 12, and then send me the email to that link. Okay. So I think we've accomplished enough for today. So let me go ahead and take roll. And then we'll do the next table on Tuesday. And then probably on Thursday, what we will do is then we will style all of the tables for responsive website to make sure that we, the tables look good when it shrinks down to the size of a phone, smartphone. Okay, so hold on a minute. Let me see who's here. Let me go ahead and bring my table over here, or my table, yeah, my roll sheet, and see who's here. So, okie doke. Today's the 2nd. Maria, you're here. How about Diego? Diego is here. How about Ashley Chisholm? I don't think Ashley's here. Ashley may be gone. Stella is here, I believe. Brian Delgado is here. Alex, I think I saw you earlier. You're here. Cool. Myra is here. Joel Gutierrez. Joel, are you here? Yep, you're here. How about Walter Kowalski? Walter, did you show up today? No? Thought we worked that out. Guess not. Gilbert Nunez. Let's see. Yep, Gilbert is here. Jared Nunez, is Jared here? No, Jared's not here. Okay. Angelica is here. How about Reggie Robledo? I don't think Reggie is here. How about Tanansan? You were here the other day. Are you here today? Tanansan Sandoval? No, not here today. How about Fernando is here? And Mario Valdez. Is Mario here? I don't think Mario is here either. That's it. Not as good an attendance as Tuesday, but I think we're doing okay given the nature of the transition to online presentation. So if there aren't any more questions, we'll go ahead and we'll sign out, and you guys have a good day. And if you have any questions and you want to hang around, I'll stick around for a bit. Okay. Otherwise, see you Tuesday, and we'll continue with the lesson 9. Okay. Good. You're welcome to log out if you want. And then I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. And I hope everybody got something from this. And we'll continue next week.